Howdy, welcome to ENGL 1020, section IF1. This is a second session summer 2020 course, which means you get to experience the thrill of taking a 15-week course and putting it into 5 weeks, which has its challenges. It's an accelerated course, but it's very doable as long as you keep up with the schedule and you let me know if you have questions as we work our way through the course. My name is Eric Fish. With this first video, I want to go over the syllabus. Just some of the major policies. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. You can read faster than I can talk. And then go over some of the philosophical underpinnings of the course, make sure you kind of understand what's happening there. Because some of this material is going to be kind of like, wow, is this a literature course? Is this a writing course? Is this a philosophy course? But there are certain philosophical underpinnings to the course and some of the discussions we're going to have. And we want to make those clear before we get too far into the material. Some major points on the syllabus. Make sure you're in D2L. You should be emailing me in D2L, and that's where the communication and most of the coursework is going to take place. That's where you're going to submit assignments. That's where you're going to see your grades. I do have a Northeast State email address, but that's only for emergencies. But if D2L goes completely dead on us, we got other problems in the course. And I'll certainly be trying to contact everybody pretty quickly there. But if you just have a horrible emergency and you need to use my Northeast State email address, feel free to do that. But you want to be in D2L because that's where I'm going to see you in terms of the class and within the context of the course. I'm not in the office this summer. They don't want us here, although I happen to be here doing this video. So leaving a phone message is a really bad idea. We'll use the Remind app if you need to text me or ask a quick question, because I'm not here to check my messages and stuff like that. Comp 2, you should have passed Comp 1 to be in here. If you didn't, and you kind of thought you snuck by, they probably come pick you up in the middle of the semester and tell you can't be in this class. And they may not give you a refund either. So make sure you pass Comp 1 if you're in here. For the catalog course description, this is Comp 2. It's a writing class. It's a composition class. But what we're going to do is we're going to be writing based on our readings from short fiction, poetry, and drama, maybe a little bit of nonfiction as well, and learn to write in a logical manner about literature. But basically, it's a continuation of Comp 1, but also kind of an introduction into your upcoming literature classes if you have to take those as part of your Gen Ed program. With the course objectives, hopefully you're going to learn to read critically, support your opinions. Not just say, well, I personally think blah, 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 blah. What are you basing that on? Can you support what you're saying, particularly through the text itself? I should be able to critically evaluate sources. We're going to keep working with research. I should be able to write analytically about literature. We're not going to be doing book reports. If you just summarize a short story or something, we'll be like, well, great, you summarized the short story. That's not what I want. I want you to analyze the story or the poem or the play or whatever. For the textbook, it's this ugly red book here. Buy this book used. Do not pay full price for it. Some students ask, well, can I just find all these stories and stuff online? You can try if you want to. Some of these I can't help you. They're copyrighted. So if you say, I need a link to this, I'm like, that's not ethical for me to provide that because I know they've stolen that material from the author. You're free to try, but we are reading some full-length plays and reading an entire play on a screen can be kind of tedious, but my basic answer is, how would I ever know if you did or not, right? For the grading, there's a grade sheet on the very last page of the syllabus. If you want to keep track of your grades, let me make that smaller. You can do that, but it shows all the work we're going to be doing in the course, and then there's 30 extra bonus points there. 90% is an A, 80% is a B, 70% is a C. So if you want to keep track, it's a good idea to do that. I will be posting grades in D2L, but you want to make sure they're correct as we go through the class and let me know if there's any problems there. I'm just going over a couple of policies, probably just these first three. One, if there's a problem, you got to let me know. I can't go through the internet and read your mind, right? And vice versa. Sometimes I'm at home thinking, man, that's the best video I've ever done in my life, and you're at home going, what in the world does this guy want from me? We got to reach that middle ground so that we understand what each of us are supposed to be doing here, right? Particularly you, because you're turning in assignments. But keep that in mind. If you don't tell me the problem, I can't help you. Don't go missing in the class, or it's only a 5-week course. If you miss a week of class, that's going to be hard to catch up with. So let me know what's going on. If you do have an emergency, kind of shoot me a quick email saying, hey, I'm still in the class. I just got to take care of some stuff. And you don't have to tell me the problem. And, your personal life's none of my business, right? Saving your work, save your work, save your work. Save it in more than one spot. Don't have your computer crash and lose your essay right before you're about to turn it in. Don't have it all on one jump drive and lose it. Have it in multiple places. You can email it to yourself through D2L. You can have it on a jump drive. If you're working on Google Docs, just don't leave it all on Google Docs and have your little brother erase your Google Docs for some reason. Make sure you have backup copies of everything you're working on, or at least everything you don't want to have to retype at the last minute. Also, when I send you grades of stuff, make sure you keep that. If I die in a fiery car crash the day before grades are due, can you go to my dean and say, I'm sorry you died in a fiery car crash, but here's all my grades. I need my grade for the course. Generally, the nice thing about an internet course and using D2L is there's backup copies all over the place on there, and the drop boxes and the grade books and everything like that. So it's kind of hard for us to lose anything, but don't deliberately delete anything out of this course until you get your final grade. And even then, probably you don't want to delete it. There's plenty of storage space. There's no reason to really do that. Work's due at midnight on the given assignment due date. I put 11:59 so it's clear it's due that night. I'm not actually up at midnight, looking to see if you turn something in. So as long as it's there, then by the time I get in there the next morning, that's great. So if you're a night hawk and you'd like to do things at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, you don't have to ask for an extension. I won't even be awake to grant you one. Just turn it in. As long as it's there the next day, we're fine, and it'll be counted as on time. But if you do start turning stuff in late, there's a 25% penalty there. That's pretty much for any material that you turn in late. You kind of know there's some last dates to turn stuff in. Grades are due pretty quickly once everything's in, so that's why. Excuse me. That's why all that's there. The rest of it, this is an asynchronous course. You're not required to be online at any particular time. We're not going to do Zoom meetings or anything like that. I found, particularly in a large class like this, students, 27, 25 students that have a very difficult time with being in the same place at the same time for a Zoom meeting. And it's just not really practical. So I tend to use YouTube videos to talk to you, and you should be communicating through email and discussion boards and things like that. But you should be checking your email every day. I'll check mine twice a day, and I do check mine on the weekends. I don't give specific times because I can be anywhere on the weekends sometimes. The rest of this, some of it's common sense. Some of it may not be. I'm required to put an emergency statement in my syllabus even though we're not meeting on campus. But you're going to read through all those and do a syllabus quiz, so I'm not going to read all those to you. When you're looking at the schedule and something says due, it's due that day. So the syllabus quiz is due on Monday the 13th by 11:59 p.m. Again, if you're a night hawk or you don't get off work till 11 o'clock, and anytime that following morning's fine as long as it's there like probably by about 8 o'clock in the morning, because that's when I'm going to download everything and start grading them, right? So like for the first one, you're going to watch a few YouTube videos, including this one, and do that syllabus quiz. Then we're going to start getting into the readings and the literature, and you're going to start doing responses. The responses are kind of get you back into analyzing literature, also writing about literature, making sure you understand the MLA formatting, so when we get to the major essays, you're kind of ready to do that. So that's kind of the purpose of the responses, and also it's a good way for me to see if you're actually doing the reading, right? But the first week's going to be fiction. The second week, we're going to be working on essay number 1, which is going to be based on the fiction. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my voice here. Everybody around me seems to be mowing the yards when it's hot and dry. So, I forgot what I was saying there. I'm not sure. But for the first essay, we're going to be working with fiction. You can see we're going to spend a week on that. Then we're going to move on to drama. Then essay number 2, which will be based on the drama. Then we'll move on to poetry, and the third essay is going to be based on the poetry. And then that's it. It's 5 weeks. It's going to go quickly. So you can kind of see, make sure you're not falling behind. Make sure you're not falling behind on the responses or the readings or the due dates with the essays. That's where students tend to get into trouble. And it's harsh because sometimes people get sick or things happen. But again, you want to kind of let me know what's going on. Make sure you ask questions if you have any. If you're not sure what's coming due, I tend to send out a reminder email almost all the time, almost every day. If you're on the Remind app, I'll send those reminders out as well. So make sure you kind of know what's going on. Make sure you have questions if you don't. I can kind of see things that come due almost every day of the week. Sometimes, like here on Tuesday, nothing's due because you're going to be writing essay number 1 and you just need a break from all the submissions to just, sometimes you just got to sit there and write, right? Same thing as I'm reviewing your drafts. I need a couple of days to make sure I have time to do that, so that's why nothing's due there. But you'll see I'm encouraging you to look ahead, make sure you're keeping up with the schedule. Don't get blindsided by 2 full-length plays that we're going to be reading the following week. I think that's about all I wanted to cover there. The next thing I want to cover is kind of the philosophical underpinnings of the course. Sometimes when you're reading from the beginning, you're going to be might make you mad sometimes because some of these authors are going to start pulling you in directions you may not be used to going in, or that you agree with, or you're comfortable with, or whatever. It's going to be kind of interesting. That's what makes literature interesting. Literature kind of functions as a way for us to examine ideas without throwing rocks and garbage at each other, right? Kind of gives us that medium through which we can discuss ideas. We'll be doing that a bit in this class. So I want to go over kind of the 2 big philosophical questions we're going to be working with. The first one's this question of essentialism versus anti-essentialism. Sometimes essentialism is called Platonism and anti-essentialism is called anti-Platonism. But basically the idea is, do you believe in truth? An essentialist believes there's an essence to things, there's a truth to things, there's a reality to things that we can hopefully learn and know and live by. An anti-essentialist is going to say, no, that's not how life really works. So an essentialist believes in truth. An anti-essentialist is going to kind of say, everything's kind of relative. It's based on perception. Everybody's concept of truth is biased, and it's based on the indoctrination you've received as you've grown up and just kind of been forced into thinking a certain way. So we kind of have this little battle going on, right? Do you come to college to get knowledge, or do you just get various biases and indoctrinations? If you listen to talk radio sometimes, right? All you evil liberal professors are trying to indoctrinate you into this leftist ideology, right? So you don't really come here for truth. So where does truth lie in that sense? If you believe in moral absolutes, you're probably an essentialist. You think in terms of something like the 10 Commandments. If you're an anti-essentialist, morality depends on the context. And anti-essentialists are going to start throwing scenarios at you like, if your child was starving, would you steal food, kind of thing, right? Well, then the truth that thou shalt not steal is not really applicable to every situation, right? You can kind of see when you start talking about it's like, that's kind of normal. These are some big questions. We're not going to, go over every philosophical, possible philosophical point. That's not easy to say in every reading, but you're going to see the authors playing with these ideas quite a bit. An essentialist believes in something like history as a series of facts that we can document. An anti-essentialist is going to say, well, history is just a narrative that's been created to support probably the current power structure, right? So women might look at history and say, well, it's his story versus all the women that existed in the past. It's like they weren't even there, right? If you read our history books. Same thing with minorities and things like that. What happens to history? Who tells that story? Who gets to tell the story? You kind of see this with our current president, Donald Trump. So he's got a lot of traction with this fake news idea. Do journalists report facts, or do they create narratives? Why would they create narratives to support, according to Trump, opposite political ideas? So very interesting question. Do you believe in truth? Or do you think everything's kind of relative? Is it kind of based on perceptions? Even if you believe in truth, you still have some work to do. Where does that truth come from, right? Does it come from a religious book? Does it come from experience? Does it come from some kind of inner voice, this inner spirit that you might think you have? If it's a religious book, which religious book? There's a few out there, right? Even if you believe in one religious book like the Bible, we're talking about something that's originally in Greek and Hebrew. I'm sorry, my brain's starting to get foggy. That comes to us through all these centuries and translations, and then you have to read it based on your own perceptions and ideas about what you're looking at as you read it. So how is truth related to us through text? Which is a very interesting question for a literature teacher in a literature class like this one. So lots of interesting things to talk about in there. You can see how writers are going to play with these ideas a little bit. And again, sometimes if you're getting mad at a writer, it might be because they're moving you in a direction you may not voluntarily go unless you were required to read this for a Comp 2 class. But hopefully it's kind of an interesting way to look at things and discuss ideas. The next philosophical question is just going to be this one about free will versus determinism. Free will is just kind of the idea that our choices determine our lives. You make good choices, you have a better life. You make bad choices, you don't have quite as good a life. Determinism is the idea that our free will is limited in various ways. If you ever met me in person, you probably know pretty quickly I'm not a professional basketball player. I'm short, I wear bifocals, I'm 56 years old. I have to watch the ball when I dribble, so I'm always kind of doing like this, and anybody can take the ball from me. I'm just not genetically designed, or I have not inherited the genes to be a professional basketball player. I can choose to practice the rest of my life every day for the entire day. I'll never be particularly good at it. I just don't have. It's my parents' fault and my grandparents' fault. I just don't have the genes for that. And also, class, how much money you have. Do you choose to come to Northeast State, or is how much money, or the Tennessee Promise Scholarship, or whatever? Does money come into play when you make your decisions? Does it limit what you can do? My children are certainly limited by the amount of money I make, right? Talk about terms of race, or gender, or biology. Do you choose who you're attracted to? It's kind of an interesting question. Who do you choose to marry? Is it really a choice, or some of those choices limited by various factors that our culture finds relevant? Are you a product of your environment? Does that limit your free will or your culture? If you're born in America, you have certain expectations that people who aren't born in America may not have. So you have all these things. Always like to use the example of age. I don't choose to get older. It's just I'm trapped in this body that's aging, and it limits the amount of choice I have. It limits the amount of physical activity I can do, or what kinds of physical activities. Uh, I can't get tackled in football without paying for it for at least a week or two with bruising and other various ailments. So, kind of an interesting question. How much free will do we have? How much are we determined by other factors? How much is our free will limited by other factors? And you kind of see if we start putting these ideas together, which our authors are going to do, we're going to be getting into some conflict. It's going to be hopefully conflict within the story, not between us, but how you interpret it is going to be based on how you view some of these ideas. And also, again, the authors are going to play with these ideas and get you to kind of examine ideas. Well, what about this? And if you're like, well, I don't know, I never thought about it before. That's the author's kind of saying, well, that doesn't mean you should be ignoring this concept. And definitely when we get to the realist or the modernist, this idea of determinism it's going to become very powerful. Just like this idea of truth and where it comes from is very powerful for the Enlightenment folks and the Romantic folks. And also our postmodern world. Is there truth in our modern world, or is it all just perception and relativism and bias and indoctrination and all this fun stuff? So, again, sometimes this isn't a philosophy class, but most literature courses are going to have some kind of philosophical underpinning. And this is kind of what we're going to be working with. And hopefully you'll find it interesting. And by the way, just as a disclaimer, the idea is not that we're going to come to one perfect answer by the end of the course, but the idea is that we just develop the ability to analyze ideas and think about them, and maybe reject them or accept them or kind of work with them. What you do with them is kind of up to you. The idea is not to indoctrinate you in this course, but to get you to be able to think in maybe a more analytical manner about some of these ideas. And of course, our authors are going to push us in that direction. Alrighty. Wanted to keep this under 20 minutes, and I think I did it. If you have any questions, obviously you're going to let me know. But we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.